everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. And welcome to another video where I'm doing 5 random reviews. This time it's for a historical romance. I did one that was just contemporary books, ended up being mostly dark contemporary books. This one we're going to do 5 random historicals. Some of them are ones I've read recently. Some of them I read previously and now they're finally out. So we're just going to talk through a couple of these. So we're going to start with one that I know I've talked about a lot lately, but I just wanted to give it in a video that was just about historical romance because I don't do dedicated reviews, and when I do weekly wrap-ups I have to try to talk quickly because I have so many to talk about. So let's go. The first one I want to talk about is Bound to a Warrior by Donna Fletcher. Let's give you a nice close-up of this beautiful babe. So this book is the first book in the Warrior King series by Donna Fletcher. This is the second series of hers that I'm reading, even though this is the first Donna Fletcher book that I ever purchased. I think, like a lot of us, when we saw this book on Instagram, we thought it was just so beautiful and we had to have it. However, I didn't want to start with this as my first Donna Fletcher just in case I didn't like her writing. I'd never read a thing by her before. I'd never heard of her before I saw this beautiful cover. So I actually read her Sinclair Brothers series first, and I just really loved it. There's something about her writing that was just this kind of like warm hug is the way that I describe it to everyone, because she has a fantastic plot going through all of her books. Her series usually have a pretty strong thread running through them. The same with this one. There is a plot of the true king of Scotland going through this. This is actually a medieval Scottish romance, so it starts in the year, I think it's 1005. Yeah, it's the year 1005. And so there still are Scottish kings and not English kings at this point, I think. And so there's kind of like a battle happening between the two of them. And there's these 4 men who are raised as brothers, though they're not blood related. They were all adopted by this one family, the McAlpin. I think you say it McAlpin. And this story starts with Duncan McAlpin he wakes up and he is strapped to this woman. Literally, they are bound together with this silver chain. And then there's this woman who he doesn't know why he's chained to her, but they're on an edge of the cliff and the soldiers are taunting them that you should make a jump for it because otherwise we're going to kill you and throw you down anyway. And so they both look at each other and the woman gives him a nod and they jump off this cliff into the ocean together. And when they reach the bottom, once they're in the ocean, we realize that the woman, whose name we discover is Mercy, she can't even swim. But she trusted this man almost instantly that he would be able to get them to shore. And so he's just dumbfounded and amazed by this woman who didn't even know him, who would trust him. And they have this amazing connection right away, literally and figuratively. And they spend a good portion of this book stuck together, which I thought was an interesting choice. Like, we do run into people along the way, but none of them have the proper tools with which to unentangle them from each other. So they are connected for a very good portion of this book, and I really like that. There are a lot of really sexy scenes because of that, because they've jumped in the ocean, they need to dry their clothes. They can't even they can't get more than a couple feet away from each other. They have to go to the bathroom together. And Duncan is just very impressed with Mercy, that he can tell she is a court lady. He can tell she has this gentility about her, but she is also like fierce and strong, and she doesn't just fall into weeping and sadness. And he's just very stunned by that. And he thinks she's so brave and amazing for never giving up, because it's hard. They are in very little clothes. It's very cold. They're hungry, and they work together so beautifully. And that's really what captured me during the first half of this book. And though a little bit of those parts can be repetitive because we keep seeing them run into someone, the someone can't help them. They tell them the king's men are after them. We have to continue on. They both have some secrets they're hiding from each other because these were strangers. So none of those secrets or like miscommunication ever really bothered me, because it does, they trust each other enough to help each other survive, but there are still things that need to be built upon before they would share these like deep dark secrets with each other. It's kind of amazing. So I was just such a big fan of this. It's very romantic. Duncan, from the beginning, Mercy doesn't believe in love, and we don't know why right away, but he does. He has seen it, and he wants it for himself, even though he knows he's in some dangerous positions. So he's constantly telling Mercy how much, like, he believes in love, and then eventually, you know, telling her how much he loves her, and she just can't imagine that someone would love her that way. It's so good. The story was well put together. There is this prophecy that's shared at the beginning of the book where it says this. It says, when summer touches winter and snow descends, the reign of the false king begins to end. 4 warriors ride together and then divide. Among them, the true king hides. When he meets his death on his own, that is when he reclaims his throne. So there's this prophecy that's at the beginning of each of these books. So these 4 warriors, we don't know which one is the king. Each one of them could be the king, each one of them could not. And so they don't know themselves. And it's supposed to, like, become clear to them through time. But we'll just have to see what happens. So I just thought it was brilliant, and I really wanted to mention it again. I know some of you have read this book because I've talked about it, and I want some more of you to try it. It was just so good. Next, I want to talk about a book that I just read for the Historical Romance Readathon, and I just thought it was stunningly beautiful. Like, it was so good. So that is Unclaimed by Courtney Milan. This was my first Courtney Milan. It's also the second book in the Turner series. I have not read the other one. This one came up in like a random pull kind of, and so this was a new to me author. This was a virgin hero. This was a disgraced heroine, and so it just ticked all my little boxes, and so I was ready for it. I was ready for it. So I listened to this on audio, and this is about a woman named Jessica, and she is a fallen woman. She's a courtesan, and she is really tired of the life. She's recently had something pretty traumatic happen to her that we don't know what it is, but there are some hints about what it might be. And there happens to be this man named Sir Mark Turner, and he is the most sought-after bachelor in London because he wrote this book called A Practical Gentleman's Guide to Chastity. And it's funny because, like, Mark is seen as this, like, holier-than-thou guy. He's been knighted by Queen Victoria because of his book, and these men have made, like, fan clubs to him and all these things, and, you know, trying to be chaste, and then it has kind of turned in a way that Mark does not like. He doesn't like the fame. He feels like people are misinterpreting his book and what he means by it. And it's just really unfortunate because his book, he's like, if people would read the book, it's about protecting women and respecting women. That's the point of his book. But men took it as women are the enemy to chastity and they tempt us into sinning and all these things that he did not mean. And so it frustrates him to no end every time he meets one of these men who is like trying to warn him away from a woman, or when people throw these young, pure, innocent women at him hoping that he'll finally choose one of them as a bride, and they're literally throwing like teen women at him because they think that'll be the answer, that will be the pure enough woman for him, and he's just so over it. So the way that Jessica and Mark meet is that Jessica, as I said, tired of being a courtesan. Mark, he has this reputation for being perfect and pure, and he doesn't really care for it at all. And Jessica hears that there is a bet for which woman could deflower Mark and bring back proof for it. And there's a large settlement waiting for the woman who can prove that Mark isn't chaste. And so Jessica, never having met a man who didn't want to sleep with her, very jaded, she chooses to put herself in his path. She uses the last bit of money that she has to go to the place where Mark is and try to seduce him, only very quickly, Mark sees through this, and he's so sick of women doing this to him. And so very early on in the book, he calls her on her crap and is just like, I'm sorry, you're not going to get me by tempting me with your body or by whatever. He's like, do you think people haven't tried that? Do you think that I haven't had people on their knees in front of me before trying to do this? Like, you're missing the point. Like, I can't be tempted into this. I'm tempted all the time. Really love some of the stuff Mark was saying. He was like, I'm tempted all the time. The point is that I respect women enough. Apparently, even when they don't respect himself, he's really going at it because he's sick of people doing this to him. And you feel for him. He is not a stuck-up, crappy person. Like, he honestly wrote this book because he respects and admires women. And he's sick of seeing how women carry the blame. Like, it's fascinating. It's so good. Because Mark is like, I see how women carry the blame when we're unchaste. We push ourselves on women. We sleep with them when we want to. We do all this. And then we just get to go back to our lives. And women have to become like Jessica or something like that. Oh my God, it's so good. But anyway, Jessica sees that she's going to have to go about this in a different way. So she admits to him, she's like, I hate you. I hate that you think you are purer than me and he puts out all these things. Like, did you even read the book? Because that's really not where it's going. And she's like, you know what? Blah, 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 blah. So they have this bickering thing. And she's just like, wow, I have no hope of getting him because he actually believes, like, the man actually believes what he says. So, like, I have no hope of convincing him to sleep with me. And Mark is very intrigued by Jessica. And the thing is, the beautiful thing about Mark, he's not chaste because he's hoping to stay a virgin or he doesn't like women or whatever. He's waiting for the right person. And so when he meets Jessica, who admits that she hates him and what he stands for and all these things, he's like, well, you are probably a safe woman for me to be friends with. Because now that you've admitted you hate me, I want to make you like me and see, you know, and Jessica's like, well, I'll keep spending time with him because maybe something will happen. But of course, this is a romance novel. And what she doesn't count on is them both falling for each other. And can she get out of her own way and unburden all the hurt that she's had to open herself up to a man who will cherish her and doesn't care about where she came from before, because he knows that it's society and men and bad decisions that put her in this place. Like, he sees her and he's not judging her and he's not demanding anything of her. He just wants to love her because of her. And it's so beautiful. I really love this. I will definitely read more Courtney Milan. I've heard people say they like the first one even better. These are about the Turner brothers, who they came from a very interesting parents. And I definitely want to read more because I really liked this. There was a lot of amazing things about chastity and like what women go through in a way that didn't feel like it was yelling at me. Because that's something that I say sometimes is like, I don't want to read a romance novel where it's like yelling at me. And this one, the payoff was so sweet. Like, it was so sweet because Mark is like earnest and believes what he says without it being zealous or without it feeling like I've said this over and over again in my vlog when I was reading this, he actually walks the walk that he's talking, and Jessica just can't believe it. And nobody else can either. Like, that's why people are trying to trap him and prove it, is because they can't walk the walk that they talk. And so he's just so different because of that. And it's fantastic. Then I have another one I recently read. I probably won't rant as much about this one, but the sequel for it recently came out and I want to inspire myself to read it, so I thought about talk about it. So, My Darling Duke by Stacy Reid. I read this book after the Smart Women Read Romance podcast did this book, and I listened to all of their episodes always, even if it's a book that I like haven't read yet, because sometimes reading spoilers will make me very excited. And there's an interesting way that they do it. Like, they will go full spoilers for books, but also there are so many things that you just can't talk about every moment in a book. But this book is about a girl named Catherine Danvers, and her family is in trouble, and so she needs to buy some time basically to get her sisters married off. So there's this duke named the Duke of Thornton, who's a recluse. Alexander's his name. He's a recluse actually because he was injured many years ago, and so he can't walk totally properly. He was paralyzed for a certain amount of time. He can walk now, but sometimes he needs his wheelchair or a cane. And so he just stays at home and doesn't go to town at all. And so she does this crazy thing where she says that they are affianced. And he has a pretty like rough reputation. And so his solicitors, they see this in the paper that she's announced herself as his intended, and they just kind of believe her because they haven't talked to him about it. And so they extend her credit to get her new gowns and to move her family into a better house. And she's just hoping that this will last long enough for her to get her sisters married off. Meanwhile, Alexander hears about this from some people who are like, when did you get engaged? And he decides to play along because he notices that this woman isn't going crazy with his money or like with his good name. She's playing things really chill, and he just doesn't understand who this woman is. And he's bored. His life is, you know, he's a recluse. His life is not what he would wish it to be. And so he's like, this is very interesting. And so he decides to go to town to meet this woman. And when he confronts her, he decides to play along with her game for a certain amount of time, I think. Can't remember how long it's for. Just because he thinks it's amusing. And he actually really likes her once he meets her. But, oh, that's right. He makes a deal with her, though, that she has to come and stay with him at his place for a certain amount of time with no chaperone, but his cousin or his sister, because he wants to spend more time with her. So she's going to amuse him. And then he promises he'll break off the engagement once her sisters are married off, and there won't be any damage to her reputation. This is still a pretty big risk, though. But what she doesn't know is that Alexander believes himself to be impotent. He has been tempted by courtesans and had women try to get him up before, but because of his accident, he doesn't believe that he could sire children or get hard or have sex. And I've never read a book before where the hero didn't have penetrative sex for this amount of time in the book. And I thought it was really well done. Granted, I'm not disabled, nor have I ever had any of that in my life. But the way that it was written about, I feel like it really hit on a lot of the issues you may have. And it is really clear from it that this isn't like a crazy miracle as it goes through the story. Like, there are signs that things are healing before he is like around this woman. So because, you know, sometimes in books, if you have a problem, like I think of this of like the infertility problem trope. I hate that it's made into a trope in books where like someone's infertile and then they're with the right person and it magically happens. That does happen sometimes. It does. I have friends where they tried and then they give up trying and then they get pregnant. There are reasons sometimes outside of science why stuff can happen. But anyway, I hadn't read it in historical romance before, and I really loved it. Also, Alex was just so much fun, and Kitty just like, they just sparred together so well. And this book was just so adorable. I really, really liked it. And I can't wait to read the next book. I've heard her Wicked Marquess is also really good, so I need to read that one soon. Then I want to talk about another Highland book. This one's actually book 2 in a series. This is Highland Vixen by Mary Wine. This comes after Highland Spitfire, which I read earlier. Did I read it this month? I might have read it in December, but I really, really loved it. This was a series that my friend Tamika from Library of Tomes, it was like her first historical romance series she read. And it was super cute how she described it, and I loved Highland Spitfire. This one takes up pretty soon after the first one, and this one is about Marcus McPherson, who is like the warlord for this clan, and then Helen Grant, who's been being kept as like a captive there, because that's during this time. Let's see what year this one is. This one's 1572, And so there's a lot of weird Scottish politics happening at this time. This is when there's lots of push and pull between England and Scotland, and there's just like all over the place. But one of the things they'll do to keep their clans in line is you will like kidnap someone who's important to them and then like keep them at your castle, and to get that other clan and you to have like a truce or whatever. And so we've seen Helen in the first book, and she makes, at the beginning of this book, she makes a pretty daring escape to make it to court because she is hoping to escape the Macphersons. Now, the Macphersons weren't cruel to her. We see Helen and Marcus really kind of go at it in the first book, and you can feel that sexual tension building, and it's really great. But she gets to court only to be like gifted in marriage to this horrible person by the regent that we're dealing with. The Earl or whatever is the regent or something. He's the one who made everything happen in the first book. And so Marcus, when he discovers she's gone, immediately heads there. And maybe it isn't her. I lied. Marcus is supposed to marry someone. Yes. And if he doesn't, he's going to be murdered. And the person he's supposed to marry is this like 14-year-old child. She's this child. And so Helen decides that, well, if she marries Marcus and they consummate their marriage, then he won't be able to marry anyone else. So she sneaks into his cell and they have the marriage completed. And then it's really funny because to fake consummation, I'll tell you this isn't like a spoiler or anything, but to fake consummation, because she's still planning to like get away from him later. And he's like, you realize if you fake consummation with me, then even if I didn't, it'll still be like you're ruined anyway. And she's like, no, we'll figure it out. It's fine, because she's headstrong and crazy like that, right? But he's already been like beaten by this Earl so that he will do what he wants. And so he has blood all over his head. So to fake her consummation, he like puts his head under her skirts and like rubs his blood off on her thigh. Because that would, you know, that would do that. But it was so funny. So they end up, of course, escaping and going back to Clan Macpherson, and they also bring with them this 14-year-old that he was going to be forced to marry, which I believe the next book is actually about her, and I'm very interested to read that. But I just love this. This was a very strong hate to love, but you could tell that it's fueled by some of the clan wars, but it's also fueled by these two have serious attraction for each other. Like, it is a burning attraction for each other, and it just comes out in a hate. But the way that Mary Wine writes it, I'm never like irritated about it. I'm intrigued and I want more, and I just have such a fun time with this series. I'm taking my time with them, but I do have the next 2 books in the series, and I also have some books from one of her other series because she just writes a fun book. They go really fast, they're really fun, and I love all the Scottish wonderfulness. So then the last one I want to talk about is a new release, but I actually read the arc of it like back in November of this year, and that is The Princess and the Rogue. This is the 3rd book in the Bow Street Bachelor series, and I really need to read the other 2. I've heard they're really good, and I need to get to it. But this book starts out in Paris in 1815, and we have Anya, who is being like, her family is losing everything. Her family has been betrayed, and so she is about to go on the run with her maid. She's almost forced into marriage by this guy named Vasily, who used to be like, I think he was her brother's friend, and he betrayed them. And so she goes on the run with her maid, taking some of her family jewels, and she ends up in England, and she is working as a lady's maid for this one dowager countess or something like that. And then Sebastian Wolfe, the Earl of Mowbray, is this woman's grandson or nephew. Sorry, I'm trying to remember. I'm not sure. But the way that they meet is that Anya, she's teaching some prostitutes like how to read, and so she happens to be at a brothel, and he comes in to get a lady for the night, and she happens to be in the madam's room because she was discussing stuff with the madam. And so he kisses her and is like, I want that one. And the madam's like, she's the teacher, like, you can't have her. And he's like, what? I want her. And it's a really funny scene. And then he ends up meeting her with his grandma slash aunt, again, I can't remember, and then finds out more about her. And it's so interesting because it becomes, so the Bow Street Bachelor is like, they're like spies or intelligent agents or whatever. I'm doing a bang up like job of explaining this, but it's so good. But anyway, the point being, he realizes that her true origins are from Russia, and he feels like she knows more than she does. And also, this Vasily guy, he has been tracking her and has maybe found her, and so she needs to be protected. So she actually moves into Sebastian's house then, and knows that this guy is coming after her. And the place that he lives is in a gaming hell. So she's undercover there. And it's just so good. So they need to like work together to prove that this guy is a traitor and everything that he did to kind of ruin her family. And it's just really great. There's really great sexual tension in this. I just love how beautiful it is. I love that it has all the Anastasia vibes, and it just made me so happy. So I loved reading an arc of this book, and I just loved it. So I need to read the other two in the series, but so there you go. That was a little bit helter skelter, but I just wanted to do some random historical reviews where I could chat about some of my favorite books I've read. So let me know, what are some of your favorite historicals? I know a lot of us just did the historical romance readathon, so let me know. If you would like to learn more about me or spend more time, I have all my links in my link tree down below. If you love this shirt, I have my rep code for literary enchantments down below. And if you'd like to spend more time with me, you can check out channel memberships. I have some fun benefits there for you. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.